That's success to a lot of people. You start here and you get there. Right? Well, that's not how a version of success is defined in our program. This is a picture of success. This is where we were. We came down to build it, right? And you can, this is going to go way up here. So this is not to scale. This is not to scale, okay? But when we started, but this is where we went to, and then we went up, and then we lost our last 2 games, Northern Illinois in the bowl game, and then we went back up, right? And now we've lost 2 games in a row. Oh gosh, oh boy, sinking of the boat. No, we played the 30th hardest schedule in America, and then as we continue to, this is how you grow. Look at anybody's life, any program, any organization, any bit, this is how you grow.
And what's interesting about that, so your perspective is success isn't a straight line. And when you came into Western Michigan, previously the guy was fired for winning 4 games. And then the next year, how many do you win?
A big 1. Should have been 0.
And so when you're saying, one, when you only win 1 and you're saying row the boat, there's probably, you're opening yourself up for a lot of criticism.
True, and then you attach it to your personal life, right? So then people in your family, they're attacking your personal. No, they're not. But that's what row the boat was all about. But they wanted to throw me out of the boat, sink the boat, hit me in the head with an oar. I mean, it was one of the worst, probably opening years of any college coach could possibly have, because I'm a very energetic guy, but behind the scenes, we were winning. The process of winning was taking form, and through recruiting and through facility development and from doing the right things. The only thing I taught, I didn't teach much football year 1, to be honest with you. It was just, we taught them how to row, what row meant, what the culture meant. We sat some great players right by me, and they probably didn't like me very much, but they wouldn't do the right things. And you have 1 year to set your culture, and you cannot compromise that culture in year 1 at all, or you'll lose them as you go forward.
And so you could have taken the shorter path to win quicker, but you, as you were going through the adversity, it seems to me like you attached yourself to the vision of what you were building as opposed to the outcome. Is that accurate?
Absolutely, and I wanted to put a motor on the boat, a sail, just give us something, right?
I love it. But at the end of the day, you are a teacher, and you give these real-life experiential learning experiences for these guys, and I'd like to show one here.
Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dream of, dreams really do come true. Ooh, someday you wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me.
Can you share more about that?
Yeah, his name's John Mulhern, passed away earlier this year. He was a member of our football team for 2 years. His dad played for us. Was very hesitant at coming around the program. I'd see him in a corner of the end zone, just kind of watching once in a while. And then I just invited him in, and he was, as a dad, he was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure you want me around the program? Are you sure you want my son around the program? You know, we usually just watch from here over the years." I said, No, you're not only that, you're part of our culture now. You're part of our program. Come on down. So John was in most of our locker rooms. John was sick with cerebral palsy, and once you have that, you have all types of immune deficiencies, and everything breaks down. And so he was sick for the most of the 2 years, but he'd always come to games. I mean, anytime he was there, we gave him a game ball. And this wasn't to try to do anything. It was to teach our players, this program's not about you, and put perspective of how good your life really is, no matter where you come from, and how much you influence John. And from John, then it became other people that had cerebral palsy. Then from other people, it became fans of John. Then John became the most popular person in Kalamazoo. And he lived the rest of his life, the last few days, enjoying Western Michigan football. And then our entire team went to the funeral, and he'll be a teammate for ours for life. And Sean's very attached. His dad's attached to our program and forever will be.
And you named an award after John.
We did. Yep.
Can you explain what
John
the award
Mohar Courage Award. We have a kid on our football team named Trevor Sweeney, and he's a little bit smaller than me, and he broke every record in the state of Michigan for all these yards, and he was a running back, and I didn't offer him a scholarship, but I invited him to be a preferred walk-on on our team. And this kid exemplifies everything John was about.
And so I'm going to show you a video of Trevor This is outstanding. What you're going to see is Trevor got a full ride, and you're going to see how it was offered to him, and just pay attention to the emotions that Trevor displays.
Who got it? Who got it? Swing! No, no, no.
Explain that moment.
The most nerve-wracking thing was I was the only one that knew about it, and our equipment manager and our film guy were the only ones because we had to find 200 rubber bands to actually tie around this football to keep this letter that offered him a scholarship on the football without it falling off. That was my panic. The second panic was he bobbled it. And the guy next to him was a walk-on too. And me, not being the smartest guy, did not put his name that much on it. You'd have to really find his name within the letter. So I was panicking, you know. I was like, now I'm gonna have to give 2 scholarships. Who am I gonna have to cut to give the other one? And go from being a nice guy to a complete jerk real fast. So, but I guess I'm pretty creative. I'm not very smart, but I am creative. You learn in elementary education when you get your degree is how you can teach 36 graders one lesson 30 different ways. So, but I like to make a surprise to people, and he deserved the surprise. You know, it's hard to surprise kids these days. All right, they're so investigative with their phones, and they know more about things than you do, and so it's hard to surprise him. But he deserved it, and he's been on scholarship ever since, and he's one of the most influential players on our football team. And that emotion's real. No one knew about that.
Well, and I think one of the things that attracts talent to PJ is his creativity. And you have the 13th best recruiting class in the country coming in. And I mean, that's almost unheard of. And so I'm just gonna show the video of the National Signing Day. And this is what you were building that was the inside story when the outcomes were gradually climbing, right? And we talked last night, this is outstanding. Can you talk about what you do when you go in, something that you ask the athletes to do that you're recruiting?
Yeah, I have a phenomenal staff, first and foremost. I mean, as a head coach, you're not allowed out. You know, they keep you in a cage, and you're only allowed out really like 1.5 months, so you can never really get off campus. But one thing I ask him, especially if I don't know him very well, and he's a player that we're really recruiting, I literally simply say to a kid, all right, tell me about your life, start at birth and go till now. Go. I've had people break down and cry. I've had parents and kids hug. I've had people make up that haven't talked to each other really in years that you just thought they were this white picket fence family. I've had kids ask parents to leave. I've had kids sit there an hour and a half and tell me everything. I've had kids give me, well, my name's PJ Fleck, I love football, and here I am. You're probably not the kid for me. You haven't been through enough. You haven't had enough adversity. You haven't had enough some change in your life. You haven't had to adapt to certain surroundings. You don't remember your life. Must have been pretty easy. And that's the one thing I always start with. And then from there, as you know, when you sit down with young people, and Coach Gunny will probably tell you the same thing, no 2 conversations are ever the same, ever, in recruiting. So people always say, well, how do you do that? How do you do that? Every story is different, and you have to adapt and be able to see if these people can truly fit your culture, not just your school. They got to fit your culture, got to fit your people. They have to be able to develop the way you develop them.
And I just would like to end with this question. As you look at your job, what % of the time do you think you're coaching people as opposed to being a tactician?
I would probably have to say that, well, as a head coach, 90% of my job has nothing to do with football. Okay, now, some coaches get hired because of a system, and they turn everything else away and just run the system because that's truly why they got hired. They had a bunch of wins somewhere and they had a system, and that's okay. and they shun the other part. They don't want to be the head coach type responsibility, or their version of a head coach is way different. My version of a head coach is doing everything at an elite level. So 90% of my job has nothing to do with football, but that 10%'s got to be 100%, because that's really why I get hired and fired at the end of the day. So when you start to think about a head coach's time, there's not enough hours in a day. And so what you direct all your energy towards is what you're going to get out. So I choose to invest into people, my boosters, my community, the culture, our players, our staff. We just had 145 people at my house the other day, and we have that, every fourth week. And puts a lot of pressure on Heather, but she's all right. She does a tremendous job. She gets it done. But I think that's the biggest thing. There's nothing to prepare you, Brett, to become a head coach. Even when you're a coordinator, your whole job is football. Score points, stop them from scoring. Coordinator, you're in charge of 50 guys, but you're not in charge of an entire community. Bronco Nation, alumni, speeches, activities things like this with you, Brett. The leadership type councils and places that you go. So, and then you've got to be able to run this football team, and then you got recruiting. But when everything still focuses around your players, what is best for your players, that whole 90% that I go out and do that has nothing to do with football has a lot to do with those players' lives 40 years from now.
And I can tell you, just observing PJ, this is a guy that's a person-first coach, for sure. And we look forward to watching you row the boat this year, man.
You got it. Row the boat, Brett.
That's right.
You got it.
It's been outstanding.